Ten Lives is an animated feature film released in 2024. This is directed by Christopher Jenkins, and I didn't enjoy this for two reasons. One is a personal reason, because I'm ridiculously emotional. The other is because I didn't find the narrative to be that interesting, and I don't think it took the right approach. And there are some good things about this. The animation quality is really nice. I really enjoyed the animation quality. We have a great voice cast. We have Bill Nighy, Zayn Malik, Gilligan, Simone Ashley, Sophie Okonedo, Llewellyn, and Jeremy Swift. Quite a small voice cast, actually. That's at least including everybody on IMDb. There may be people missing from IMDb, but certainly it's not an extensive cast, but we do have a lot of characters, and this really shows the diversity in the voice acting. So the animation's nice, the voice acting is good. However, I didn't like it. And as I said, there are two reasons. One reason is my own problem, but the other is that I just didn't think the narrative was that interesting. This is about a cat called Beckett, and it actually starts off with the cat as a kitten, and he was absolutely gorgeous. And then he grows up. He's quite a chunky cat. He's definitely been well fed, well pampered, and he uses up his last life. Cats, of course, having 9 lives, as it were, and he uses up his 9th life, and he goes into the afterlife, and he is able to come back and relive his 9 lives, but as different animals. And I just don't like the direction this took. I just found it to be incredibly boring. There's a bit more to it than that, but honestly, I feel like it would have made a much more interesting story if, for example, he had used up his 9 lives and he was able to come back and change the error of his ways. Rather than being a lazy, pampered cat, he had to actually provide more value to nature. I don't know exactly how he'd do that. I haven't fleshed out this idea, but to give him the chance to have that final life again and change the error of his ways. Otherwise, he'll just end up back there. And I think that would have been significantly more interesting and more meaningful, and would also make viewers question how they're spending their lives, whether they're using their life wisely, because most people don't get a do-over. So I just didn't care for the narrative itself. I don't think it was the most interesting way to tell this cat's story and to follow this cat's journey. What I did like is that even though I didn't care about him coming back as different animals, I really didn't care less. I was slightly interested to see what animal he would come back as next. But once we find out what animal he is next, I don't care. I don't care until the next time it happens. But what I did like is that he has different coloured eyes. He has one blue eye and one yellow eye. So that means when he does come back as different animals, those animals have one blue eye and one yellow eye. So it's immediately obvious that it's him reincarnated as a rat and a fish and other animals. So I didn't care for it, but there were some interesting bits, mostly with the animation itself. However, that's not the only reason I didn't enjoy this. This is kind of a really difficult film to watch. I've mentioned this before, but I struggle to watch animations, any films, but including animations about animals, particularly about cats. Even if they're not necessarily emotional narratives, I find them really difficult. So when I'm being forced to think about a dead cat for an hour and a half or however long the film lasts, I really struggled with it because I spent the entire time thinking about my own cat. And there was one scene in particular that really got to me, and it's a tiny spoiler, so I'll mention it in a moment with a spoiler warning. But if, like me, you struggle to think of your own pet, whether it's a current or a past pet, and that's something that's kind of unavoidable with this film, I just found it to be really emotionally challenging, because throughout the entire thing, partly because the narrative wasn't that engaging, so I wasn't distracted by the narrative, I was constantly just thinking about my own cat's mortality. And I really, put it this way, I was desperate for the film to be over. I could not wait for the film to be over. So it's also a very challenging watch, and that's something that's worth bearing in mind. If, like me, you do not like sad animal films, then this one is going to be quite brutal. It really is. And as I said, I couldn't wait for it to be over, partly because it was dull, but also because it was emotionally very challenging. So I don't recommend it, unfortunately. 10 Lives is not a great narrative, none of the characters are really likable either. Beckett, I'm not so sure. I don't know if I like the cat or not, but the rest of the characters, Beckett's owner and other animals and other characters just weren't that interesting. So there really wasn't anything that appealed to me other than the animation. The actual animation quality was quite good, but the rest of it I found to be really dull and more emotional than I could deal with. So unfortunately, I don't recommend it. And I will now mention the one scene, the one moment that I thought, well, a couple of moments that I thought were really, really challenging to watch. And I guess in a way that's a good thing in the film's favour because it means it is affecting me emotionally. But to be fair, you just need to say the word cat and dead in the same sentence and I will crumble. So it doesn't take much to affect me. But the two scenes, these are, well, they're spoilers, but they happen quite early on. And the first is when Beckett's owner goes to bed at night with Beckett gone. She doesn't know Beckett's passed on and is being, reliving these lives. She just thinks he's missing. The cat has gone missing. And she goes to bed without the cat. And the second one is when she's having to leave the apartment without her cat, which must be horrible. And she's donating Beckett's belongings to, I can't remember if it was a vet's practice or a charity, I can't remember, but she was donating the cat's belongings because the cat no longer needs them, and it just, I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with that at all. So emotionally, I can't handle this film, but also the narrative isn't very good either. So there's not really anything here that I'd recommend it for. Voice acting is good, animation quality is good, but that's about it.